for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I apologize for being a little bit late coming out of executive session. I would ask if there was any public comment from the board this evening. No. I have two announcements. The first one is the Town of Lunenburg School Building Committee is inviting everyone to a public forum that they are having Wednesday, October 30th, 2013, 7 p.m. at the Lunenburg High School Auditorium on Massachusetts Avenue. It is about the proposed middle school, high school building project that we have talked about several times at this board, and certainly has been in the paper and taken up a lot of people's energies pushing this forward. So again, Wednesday, October 30th, 2013, 7 p.m. at the Lunenburg High School Auditorium. Also, to remind you that this Saturday, October 19th, there will be the Lunenburg Fire Department's annual open house, which is from 12 noon until 4 p.m. There will be numerous displays of public safety apparatus and equipment, including a fire extinguisher demonstration as well as an auto extrication demonstration. So it's good for the public. I know children love seeing the apparatus and meeting the staff there. Preceding that open house, from 11 a.m. Until when, Chief? Till noon. You can come and have coffee with Police Chief Marino, who will be at the Public Safety Building as well. If you have issues that you'd like to discuss with him, or just have a chat with him, not necessarily about any particular issues, but just about the police department and their workings, etc., he would love to see you. I would encourage people to go and visit both of these events and visit both chiefs at the Public Safety Building. They do a fabulous job, as Chief was here last week discussing about some of the work that both departments were involved in as far as the rescue at Lake Whalum. So again, 11 a.m. coffee with Police Chief Marino, and 12 to 4, the open house for the fire department. At 7 o'clock, do I have any public comment from the public first? Seeing none. 7 o'clock, we have a request for approval of a wine and malt beverage license for Honey Farm, Inc., being at 134 Leominster Shirley Road. Is the applicant here? If you can, one representative or all of you, come to the microphone and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your request.
My name is Vern Johnson. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Honey Farms. I'm here this evening with Wilfred Iandoli, our President and CEO, and also Tracy Epstein, who is going to manage the location for us. As you mentioned, we're here tonight to hear the application for the wine and malt beverage license, and here to answer any questions you may have.
The one question I have, because it's still being constructed, do you know when the opening date is?
Well, it's a floating date. We're targeting October 25th.
Okay. And what will be once it's open, what are the operating hours?
24 hours.
Oh, it's 24 hours. Okay. We all have in our packets all the forms, all the filings, all the background checks, requests, applications, etc. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just a technical question. The query requests are for, they do not include for the manager. Does the manager have a query check? Kerry? That may just not be.
We submitted queries for 2 individuals. I'm just going to check.
Those were for Wilfred Iandoli and David Murdoch, the owners of the company.
Do we?
Oh, okay, so we need to submit one for the manager as well, and
I'm not assuming there's going to be any issues, but I just want to make sure that that was consistent with what we've done.
We have the results of one back, so any decision you make this evening needs to be contingent upon receipt of the second.
Do we, just So I am aware of the wine and malt beverage licenses. How many, is this the last one?
This is the last one. This is the one that was released by Elena's, when Elena's received an all-alcohol license. At that time, when that license was released, I can't remember exactly when it was, but according to your policy, we advertised that we had that license available. We did have one entity pick up an application, but did not send that back, decided not to proceed with that. So we have had this license for 6 or more months.
Okay. Excellent. Any further questions about the application or for the applicant?
Yeah, it probably is in here and I missed it, but if you have 24-hour operation, what are the hours of the actual alcohol license?
That would be from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., and then on Sunday from 12 noon until, I believe, 8 p.m.
So do you lock the cases, or how do you manage
Yes.
that? Okay. Right. And I presume you sell beer and wine in other locations?
We do,
Okay.
we do.
Has the manager been involved in other operations?
She is tip certified, yes, she
Okay.
is.
Okay.
She has not managed a location that has sold beer and wine, but she has worked in those locations, and she is tip certified.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
The only question that I have, Mr. Chairman, is if we approve this contingent upon receipt of acceptable quarries, I guess that's a question that I have in my mind, is an acceptable quarry. I mean, I guess because, I mean, a quarry can have results that may or may not impact a decision. So I guess I would like to understand how we would do that. I don't anticipate any issues, but how would that verbiage be? What's the appropriate verbiage to approve it contingent upon a quarry check?
Well, I mean, we do have a policy for quarry checks, so, and we've been fortunate that we really haven't had anything substantial come back. I mean, the most we've seen is somebody 20 years ago might have some
Exactly.
minor infraction or something. But I guess I would suggest that you make it contingent upon receipt of a clean quarry, or if there's anything that's noted, that it be brought back to you in accordance with your policy.
Okay.
Right, so I think that's exactly the wording I would expect, that we would say it will be issued on the contingent of a clean quarry. Anything other than a clean quarry would be remanded back to this board.
Okay, I would make that motion that we approve this license with those contingencies for both the quarry that's outstanding and a quarry check of the manager.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. So that's it. So we will wait for those two requests to be made and one come back.
Okay, so we have one quarry check that we're waiting to receive, and we'll do another one on the manager.
Correct.
Very good, thank you very much. I just had one other question.
Yes.
I noticed later on in the evening, there was a reference to the Keno to Go license.
There is. We did receive notification from the State Lottery Commission that, I guess they've authorized Keno to go at your location, and asked if the licensing authority had any comments. I mean, we typically haven't had any comments, but I wanted to put that on, just because you have a short window. Within 21 days of receipt, we received it on October 9th.
Do other, like, does Mr. Mike's have a Keno as well there? I mean,
Is Keno next door?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who has it,
Right.
but several locations have that.
Good. I don't have any problem
I don't have
personally.
any concerns.
No questions.
No concern here.
Okay.
There are no concerns, so that's fine too.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Just
Go
once?
from here, the police.
Just once?
Okay, because we have the chief here, let's go down to appointments. The ratification appointment of both Peter Lekaditis and Bradley McNamara to the position of police officer. I would ask Chief Marino. You're a regular, like a recurring guest on this show.
Is that good or bad?
You're a recurring guest on this show.
I've been called high maintenance. Yeah, I'd like to recommend Peter Lakaditis and Brad McNamara for appointment to the position of full-time officer to fill vacancies caused by attrition. Peter's a resident of Lunenburg, graduate of Lunenburg High School. He's been employed by the fire department since 2009 as a firefighter EMT, and he's been a reserve police officer since last February, and has completed the 242-hour intermittent reserve police academy. He's currently enrolled at Mount Wachusett Community College in a criminal justice program, and is presently working for the police department in a full-time capacity. Peter's been helping us fill the shifts that were created by the vacancies for some time now. Peter was also involved in that water rescue last week. He went in the water with 4 other members of the public safety building, police and fire. Great guy. Recommend him highly. Everybody likes him, loves him, so to speak. And I think he's going to be a great employee. He's got a great work ethic. He's a good guy. Brad McNamara. He's been with us for a short time, but gained a great deal of respect from everybody on board. He's been described by his fellow officers as a quick learner, extremely smart, professional, very likable. He's been employed by the Massachusetts Department of Corrections as a full-time corrections officer since May of 2008. He's a graduate of Endicott College with a bachelor's of science degree in criminal justice. He did his college internship with the Worcester County Drug Task Force, as a matter of fact. Brad, too, has completed the Reserve Intermittent Academy, in addition to the mandated academy associated with being a full-time corrections officer. Brad's, again, a great guy, community-oriented. His father's police officer in Fitchburg, has been for years, very well respected, a person I hold in high regard. His uncle as well. His uncle's a full-time police officer in Fitchburg, another gentleman who I hold in high regard. If you do decide to ratify this, I'm recommending that it's done on, the appointment's effective January 10th, because the police academy starts on the 13th. So it's really not necessary until then. But I do need a letter stating that they're appointed just to get them a seat ahead of time. And that's the purpose of doing this tonight. Okay.
Madam Town Manager, you are the one who appoints them, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so is that the time frame that the chief just mentioned? Is that the time frame you were looking at? Or
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, as you've come before us since you've been chief with many people. You've had a lot of vacancies to fill, and as you know, I have the highest regard for you and your ability with the town manager to really find and groom people through the reserve program and through other involvements to get them to the point of police officer. And I think that your track record has been excellent, and I fully trust both of your decisions to do that. So I'm fully in support of these appointments.
And I would agree wholeheartedly, and I want to thank both gentlemen for coming forward and for the great job they've been doing. And I would make a recommendation to ratify Peter Lakaditis and Bradley McNamara as full-time police officers.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Congratulations, gentlemen, and good luck on the force.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Problem with following Tom is there's nothing left to say.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Going to. Okay, next up under current business is the one-day liquor license for the North Leominster Rod and Gun Club to be taking place on November 15th, 2013. Anybody from there? No. I believe this is for their annual meat raffle that they have. It is, in fact. So it is to be held at their location at 1501 Lancaster Ave from 6 to 11 p.m. on November 15th, which I am not sure, but I'm assuming is a Saturday.
It's a Friday.
Friday, okay. Again, as I said, they have this every year. Have we gotten through, has this been passed by the police chief?
It
Oh, you
has.
must
It's
have read
been- Sorry, I had to include that.
That's true.
You should have harassed him about it.
Well, if he was here, I would read it, but
Escape the
it
grilling.
seems to be hollow at this point.
I would make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license for North Leominster Rod and Gun Club on 11/15/2013.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. A request for a voluntary toll from the Turkey Hills Lions Club on, this will be Saturday then, November 16th, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., both at Town Center and at the intersection of Whalum Road and Electric Ave.
Mr. Chairman, as a member of the Turkey Hill Lions Club, I'll recuse myself from this vote.
So again, this is an annual event, one of the many tolls that we, that are exercised in our town from various organizations. Everybody should be familiar with the Turkey Hill Family Lions Club. They've been very active in many, many parts of this town, and they do excellent work. So I personally would support this and would entertain a motion for their voluntary toll day.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I also support the event and just want to remind us that we've made a commitment to put together some policies and procedures for tolls, and just kind of looking forward to having that next time we review this.
I agree. And I'm assuming that, well, not I'm assuming, I would hope that we would be contingent on the fact that this permission would be contingent on the fact that they check with the police chief, that everybody be wearing reflective clothing, and that nobody under the age of 18 would be collecting.
The police chief did review this request, and those are the standing requirements for any of the tolls.
So then, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. It is unanimous.
Second page for us to sign, then Tom has to sign there.
A request from B&H Corporation to stay in order of suspension for Mickey Shays pending the outcome of an appeal to the ABCC.
So on September 23rd, we issued a notice that actually on September 17th, you voted to suspend the license for Mickey Shays for violations of your local regulations for 2 days. The suspension period is October 18 and 19. The license holder does have the ability to file an appeal with the ABCC. That appeal has to be filed within 10 days of receiving the notice of decision of the board. The license holder did supply us with a copy of a letter that he sent to the ABCC requesting an appeal. We haven't received confirmation back from the ABCC yet that the request was approved and/or that it meets the requirements of the petition. Typically, I mean, this has only happened a couple of times where you've actually suspended a license, but we do hear from the ABCC that they've received that. We didn't immediately contact the ABCC because they would send us something. But last week, when we hadn't heard anything, we attempted to contact the ABCC to find out if, in fact, they had received it, knowing that Mr. Herrick, the license holder, was interested in having the board vote on the stay of the suspension. We put in several requests to the ABCC, did not hear anything back. Finally, today, I spoke with the person who we were told was the coordinator of appeals. She stated that I don't know if she no longer held that position or what, but it was a different person we needed to speak with, and that person was not in the office. I then reached out to town council, who does work with the ABCC, and asked if he could make contact and see if he could get an answer, because it was surprising that there was only one person in the ABCC who could answer the question whether or not the appeal was received. Apparently, that is the case. There is one person who can answer that question, and she wasn't there today. So unfortunately, I can't confirm that the appeal was received. I don't necessarily have any reason to think that it wasn't, but because the license holder obviously is very interested in this, because the suspension would be served this weekend. Town council in the past has advised you that when a license holder appeals your decision, has advised that you stay the suspension while the appeal is in process. Just in the event that if the ABCC does, or when the ABCC hears the appeal, if they overturn your decision, it's easier for the town to deal with it if the license holder hasn't served the suspension. So what council has recommended or suggested is that the board consider setting a deadline of maybe noon tomorrow to hear back from the ABCC, and if we're able to confirm that the appeal was timely filed by noon tomorrow, that the suspension of October 18 and 19 would be stayed until after the appeal. But if we are not able to confirm that the appeal was timely filed by noon tomorrow, whatever time you so choose, that the suspension would stand.
I would make that motion as the town manager just outlined.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess I just have a question. There's a letter in here from Mr. Herrick requesting various items that I assume are to build his case for such appeal. Are they required to be in prior to the appeal, or is he just looking for a date? Kerry, do we know that? Is he just looking for a date of appeal and then he has time to put together this material, or?
Well, the material he's asking for is from us.
Right.
Yes, both the license holder and the town would receive notice that the appeal was filed. At that same time, it is likely that we would be given a date for the hearing.
And during that time, we could get the material that we're...
Right, and
okay.
that hearing would, at this point, I think they're running about 3 to 4 months out. But this is a public records request that we would have to comply with. And I believe that we have already answered that request.
My question was just regard to get the date. He doesn't need this material to...
No, he doesn't.
Fine.
No.
Thank you.
And when is timely appeal filing at the state with ABCC?
It's 10 days from the date the license holder receives the notice of decision.
And in this case, when would that be for?
The notice of decision was issued on the 23rd. It looks like it was received on the 25th. But we sent it certified. I'd have to confirm, but it looks like it was received on the 25th.
This is the letter. Oh, no, this is back.
No.
Okay, yeah. This is public, correct? This information?
I believe so.
And you're saying that the public information request was provided already to the applicant?
I believe that we've already, I mean, I know Linda was working on that. I believe that.
The applicant is saying yes, and just because I remember the questioning of that night, I just want to note that the request for public information included a list of any and all disciplinary actions taken by the Board of Selectmen against, or previous boards of selectmen against licensed alcohol common victualers. And it was to include the name and nature of their infraction. And I should note for the record that your own establishment was one of them. So, when I asked you that night whether or not you had ever been in violation, that was an incorrect answer. So you actually had been cited for violations of your liquor license in the past. Okay, we have a motion for a stay on the order of suspension. And it was properly seconded, correct?
Yes.
All right, so all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None. And it is, at least from my point of view, completely a pro forma vote while the appeal is going on. Okay, are there minutes?
Mr. Chairman, just one correction on the minutes. On the executive session, we have it listed as collective bargaining, which it's actually negotiation with non-union personnel. So that's just one.
Okay.
So it's
These the 10:18 the 10:08 minutes?
that's right.
Okay. So we should not sign these and request that.
No, would you mind just making that note? Or if you're going to pass them down, if
Right.
not, I'll just,
Okay, and then just so you're going to make the note and
I will.
sign it, and we'll initial it on the way back? Warrants.
there's just one,
One warrant. Assuming accounts payable.
yeah, council.
Accounts payable for $240,953.74.
Thank you. You'd like to change that with sign.
Okay.
And action file issues. None.
I have one action item. Has there been any report from town council regarding the complaint regarding the town election?
No, I have not received anything.
Okay.
I can put in a request tomorrow for an update.
Thank you.
Why aren't,
I didn't include committee
Yes.
reports and all that because I thought we would be running short.
right,
of-
okay. But we're not. Okay, committee reports. Board of Health,
No further update?
Building Reuse Committee,
No meeting since the last report.
Capital Planning Committee,
Meeting every Wednesday, fire department tomorrow morning.
Finance Committee,
The last meeting had the school building committee come in, made a presentation, their normal updated presentation, but also got into the financials a little bit. And the town manager presented as well.
okay. Library Board of Trustees,
No further update?
MPO,
Not meeting again until November. We did not
Planning,
meet- We did not meet in October.
gotcha. Planning Board,
I was able to attend a portion of the last planning board meeting, which was on October 7th. I did miss the end of the meeting. But the main issue that was addressed was Montezut Planning, MRPC came in, John Hume gave a presentation on the village center bylaw that they are looking at. There were a number of issues that were talked about, most of them centered around parking. And I was asked to check back with the MPO and Brad Harris of MRPC on some of those issues. As we all know, parking is an issue in the center. So there was a lot of talk about what potential parking options there are. And one of the requests is to go back to MRPC and look and see if there's any potential funding for parking options, such as a lot or a garage, or if there are grants available or funding available. So I will follow up on that. They're also investigating funding under the Unified Planning Work Program, again through MRPC, for zoning and walkability planning. And one of the members brought up the idea of the possibility of creating a transportation hub for MART buses within Lunenburg, and whether or not that would be something they would even entertain, especially in light of the potential senior center and the development that's going on in town. They thought that it might make sense to at least investigate whether or not it was an option. So I will be meeting with Brad Harris to talk about all of those and just find out information as a member of the MPO. Other highlights that were talked about is the current work that MRPC is doing on the Village Center presentation is being funded by a DLTA grant, which is a dedicated local technical assistant grant, and they are looking at doing additional funding to bring the whole project to fruition. There was a lot of great economic information that John presented to the planning board, and I know that the town manager has shared that, and that needs to be funneled to the building reuse committee, because there's a lot of information in there that I think would be very important in looking at what happens with the TC Passios in particular. Other highlights from the meeting is that they are also looking at the possibility of obtaining a DLTA grant for looking at the Leominster Shirley Road area and the potential for commercial and industrial development along that route. And then finally, they this is something that came up previously, and they were looking for information again on the timeline for the primary building, and I had relayed again that we were awaiting further information from RCAP and John Hume on where they stood with what they were looking for from the town.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt for just a second, at the town manager's recommendation, we are planning to forward the information from MRPC to the Building Reuse Committee, and we'll use that as part of our review process at our next meeting. It looks at first pass to be very valid and pertinent.
Excellent. PAC we're meeting with in about 15 minutes. I assume you don't have a report.
I do not have anything further than that.
I don't want to preempt. School committee.
No new report.
School building committee.
We set up a subcommittee to look at the design, look at the finishes, et cetera, to see if we couldn't reduce some costs, perhaps in some of the site work or in some of the areas which will not be reimbursed by the MSBA. We started that process. We're working with the architect to consider tweaking the design. I mean, keeping the design as it's been seen for the most part, but seeing if there's not ways we can change it a bit to reduce site costs, reduce other costs, so just to try to get that into a more balanced situation. So we met last Thursday. We're going to meet again the 24th, I think it is, with more updates from the architect and the OPM and the CM, and see if we can improve on things. And just another note, as part of our, I didn't highlight this last week, the week before, when I should have, part of our reimbursement from the state, from MSBA, is we get an extra 1.72 points out of 2 for building maintenance. And again, it's often felt that if you look at the building, or if you look at some of the deferred maintenance decisions we've made, capital decisions, as we wait for this to get fleshed out, like the roof, that somehow the building's been poorly maintained, poorly managed, when indeed the average MSBA reimbursement around maintenance is a 1%. We're at 1.72, so things aren't necessarily very pretty in some areas, but again, there's been a lot of work done by Mr. Londa and his staff with short money to keep that a usable building.
Yes, and kudos to him and his staff for doing that. Sewer Commission.
No further update since last time.
Okay, and no update from Mass Broadband. Couple of things that I missed at the beginning. First is a proclamation. a United Nations Day Proclamation 2013, subtitled The United Nations in Everyone's Interest. I will just read it. Whereas the United Nations was founded in 1945 and the anniversary of the date on which the UN Charter came into force is observed each year on October 24th. And whereas the United Nations promotes peace and security, development, democracy, economic prosperity, global health, and human rights around the world, and is vital now more than ever. And whereas the United Nations works to achieve the Millennium Development Goals by providing a common development strategy for the international community, improving coordination, coherence, and effectiveness within the UN system, the donor community, and developing countries. And whereas the goals address universal issues from poverty and access to education to improving healthcare and environmental sustainability, and enjoy unprecedented political support because they are specific and measurable, with a deadline and indicators for monitoring progress attached to each goal. And whereas the United States has a long tradition of leading international efforts to improve health, education, and economic growth in developing countries, and has shown its commitment to the Millennium Development Goals through foreign assistance, progressive trade initiatives, and debt relief measures. And whereas the bipartisan poll conducted in April revealed that more than 8 out of 10 voters say it is important that the United States maintain an active role within the UN, and whereas the UNA, USA, and United Nations Foundation have declared, quote, the United Nations Partnerships for Global Progress, unquote, as its theme for the 2013 United Nations Day commemoration. And whereas the United Nations Association of Greater Boston is committed to educating and mobilizing our local communities to build a stronger network of global citizens and leaders to create a more prosperous, just, and sustainable world, whereas the citizens of Lunenburg should participate in all activities related to UN Day, now, therefore, I, Tom Alonzo, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, officially proclaim October 24th, 2013 as United Nations Day. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Lunenburg to be affixed on this 14th day of October in the year 2013. And actually the 15th day, sorry. And lastly, the board, in negotiating sessions over the past few weeks, have successfully negotiated and completed a renewal of the contract with Ms. Speidel as our town manager. We are happy to report. The highlights of the new agreement are as follows. Marked up one? Sure. The salary of the town manager will, this is current, right? Will increase to $125,000 per year from the current $122,039 per year. And that salary will remain in force all 3 years of the contract. In addition, on the December 1st of each year of the contract, there will be $2,500 paid in deferred compensation plan to the town manager. There was a slight change in the evaluating instrument, and the changes as follows: that should the town manager receive an overall rating by this board of commendable, that she will receive as a performance bonus not to be added to the next year's base salary of 1.5%. And if she would receive an overall rating of outstanding, which is the highest available on the overall rating, which is a compilation of all the Board of Selectmen, that would be a 2.5% performance bonus of base salary. And lastly, the last change is that should the contract not be renewed, mutually agreed not to be renewed, there would be no severance paid, which was really an oversight that was corrected. So those are the 4 changes. We are I won't speak on behalf of the board, they can speak for themselves. I have been very happy to be on the Board of Selectmen working next to Ms. Speidel since her arrival here in Lunenburg. I think many of the people in the town of Lunenburg would agree with me that the change in the presentation of all the financial and budgetary items, both at public meetings, such as the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, both televised and not, and a town meeting, of course, has been extraordinary, of the highest caliber. I think she has organized under very tough times, and I don't mean to embarrass her, but under tough times, I think it's been an excellent job in dealing with overall decreasing purchase power. I don't want to say decreasing revenues, but decreasing purchase power, and a reduction in staff, and still maintaining all the work that needs to be done, even in the face of static, if not increasing, state regulations on all fronts. And I'm very pleased that we were able to reach a new agreement for another 3 years for her to continue here and continue the work she's doing here.
I'd also point out that over the past few years, past number of years, the town manager has foregone increases, made minor increases. She's given a lot back to the town that she contractually was obligated to her, but she gave it back. She didn't take it. She's also working, doing more with less in her office and throughout the town. And she's proven to be a great value to this town and professionalizing this town hall, getting away from some of the old ways of doing things and getting more out, open, transparent, and clear to everybody, so they know where their money's going and what's happening with it. So I think she's been a great addition to the town. I look forward to a few more years with her, we hope, and more.
I would concur with all of the comments made from the other members, and I too look forward to continuing to work with Ms. Speidel, and her professionalism and dedication is truly appreciated.
As a new member of the board, I appreciate everything that everybody else said and all the professional parts, but I also very much appreciate Kerry's sense of humor and positive spirit.
And I'd like to add in that Lunenburg came a long way in its charter process, bumps and diversions over the years with the CAFO, and then changing to a town manager. It's my goal that this board do what it's charged to do, which is to stay in the policy level wherever possible, and utilize the town manager's skills and background to do the management of the town. And I look forward to working with Kerry on that process.
Excellent.
Can I say thank you?
You may.
Because you all know how much I really love sitting up here and listening to all of this. But I do want to thank you for the opportunity to serve the community. I look forward to working with you for at least the next 3 years. So thank you very much.
Yes. You all should have received an email from the town manager that was from the Open Space Committee about, well, if you haven't, it was sent today. So you should have gotten it, and if you haven't checked your email, then you should. But anyway, we were asked to consider putting together a team to look at open space properties that may be coming up, and to work to that regard. And we said we would discuss it and potentially name a representative of this board to serve on that team.
Mr. Chairman.
Now that we have our full board, which we haven't, I apologize. Now that we have a full board, we haven't done this last week because members were out. So I'm bringing it up tonight if we want to discuss that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm very pleased to hear about this team. I did have an opportunity to talk with one of the open space members to find out where this was going, and I personally do have an interest in this as a member of the Montezut Regional Trail Coalition and active with Conservation Commission and members of different trail groups. I would like to be involved in that committee if no one else is really gung-ho on doing it. But I would love to do it.
Okay. I will act, I would like to be involved, but I think your background is probably more suited, so I will act as a second in those meetings that you cannot attend, so.
Fantastic.
Okay, so it doesn't need an official vote, so I think we'll just submit Mrs. Bertram's name to the Open Space Committee.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a joint meeting with the Public Access Cable Committee at 8 PM. That will be workshop style. So we will not be on air for that because that's going to be a roundtable discussion about just a general meeting that we're trying to have with all appointed committees that we have. So I think I will ask this board if they have any parting public comments for the televised portion here.
Mr. Chairman, will that be the format when we meet with all committees? That we will do a
I think we should
workshop?
do it in workshop format. I think it
Okay.
makes it.
It's still an open meeting, the press is
Right, oh
welcome
yeah,
to
it's
be there.
absolutely
Okay.
an open meeting. I think there's, like all our workshops, it's going to be talking about things and getting into details maybe of bylaws and things that it's going to be hard to present in an open meeting. We're not going to have the visuals and everything, so.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing. I know that for next week's agenda, we're going to be talking about existing and future debt service because we need to talk at some point regarding the school project borrowing. I'd like to put on the table, if Kerry could investigate, I haven't had time to do it myself, of another option to possibly do interest only or reduced principal payment during the time period of other exempt debt is on the books so that later on there may be an opportunity to reduce the burden. There's the cost involved. We're going to discuss that, but I'd like to have just another option so we can look at the different ways of financing this project.
I certainly can do that. There's a legal time period with which we could just do the interest only, and I will put that together for you. I do also, I wasn't sure if we were going to have any extra time, so I do have the handout that I gave to the Finance Committee last week that I will distribute to you, and I expect that we can go through it next week, but I wanted you to have some time to look at the information and also just to remind the board or advise the board that it is the Board of Selectmen with the town treasurer that actually determine how we finance the project. So this is something that we've done in the time that I've been here, I think just one bond issue. So this is not something that has come before you, and the bond issue that we did was very small, where we didn't have as many choices as we do with the school financing project. So this is something that you will need to become very familiar with because it will be you and the treasurer that make the official decision on the term of the bond, whether it's a 20-year or 30-year. The decision that you make really is with the bonds, not so much with the temporary financing. And if we did an interest only, that's temporary financing. But certainly we can talk about that. You can be aware of that. You certainly can provide input on that.
Just want to add that topic came up at the Finance Committee meeting the other day, and I invited the Finance Committee and anyone in the public that has input on this. It's a big decision. There's big impacts. You do the longer term. If you do a 20-year borrowing, it's a higher cost, of course. Your payments are higher. If you do a 30-year, your payments are lower, but you pay a lot more money in the end because, of course, you're paying for 30 years. So it adds about $10 million total to the cost, round numbers, and we can fine-tune that as we go ahead. But it's going to be a big decision, and it's going to be a big challenge, and we do need to look at this creatively as we can. But people, need to be heard. If you got an opinion, let us hear it, because we don't want to make it in a vacuum, because it is a big deal.
And our decision will be done before town meeting so that people will know what the impact will be.
Yeah. I don't know if we could even consider maybe a referendum vote on it, which way to go. I don't know if that would get confusing or too much, but it's something we could kick around perhaps later.
Just on the same ballot as the debt exclusion, have a non-binding.
Yeah. Something to think about. We can talk about it some more.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs.
one
Bertram.
other issue under action file, and that is, I did have an opportunity to watch last week's meeting, and there was reference to having a workshop for policies and procedures, and I don't know if we wanted to talk about that or wait till that next week, or if we were looking at having a
I
special
just
workshop.
asked everybody if the last Tuesday of the month, we don't usually have a meeting, and to offer that as a meeting, that would be the 29th.
9th. And that would work for me.
I'm available.
Fine with me.
Sure. So 29th. 29th will be a workshop for policies and procedures. And if somebody makes a motion before that last bell, we'll be right on time for the 8 o'clock meeting.
I would make a motion to adjourn our regular meeting or televised meeting to a non-televised workshop.
Do I have a second?
Do we actually adjourn?
Well,
or do we-
Well,
we're
just-
adjourning the televised portion. We're not,
Right.
well, I guess, I don't know how you put that.
I don't know.
We are moving from,
We are moving from a televised meeting to a non-televised meeting.
Well, we can just say
It's a
good
physical
night,
motion.
everyone. Yes. Good night, everyone. We will be back on next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Thank you.